Hi guys, and welcome back to another devlog about Skyland. The last 2 weeks I've been working on building, crafting and the world generation. The building behavior in this game should be similar to the one of Fortnite because of how easy it is to use. The only exception is that it shouldn't be entirely based on a grid system. So in my version you place your building wherever you want. Each placed building emits a certain amount of edges where you should be able to place the next building. Those edges then emit faces around them, and those are the final spots where you can lock in your next building. A wall, for example, has 2 vertical edges and 2 horizontal edges. The horizontal edges emit 2 horizontal faces, those on the ground, and 2 vertical faces, which would be one face that goes up where the wall is and one that goes down below the ground. On horizontal faces you can place a floor, a roof and a staircase, and on the vertical face you can only place a wall. And that's pretty much the whole system. There are some other small things I had to do to make it reliable, like checking which edges are connected to avoid floating staircases, or checking that there's no other building in a certain range to avoid having multiple building blocks inside each other. But other than that, it wasn't that hard of a challenge as I thought in the beginning. The only thing left to do is to make the building blocks editable to create doors, fences and so on, but I will work on that in a later devlog. The next thing on my to-do list was the world generation. So far I only generated 2 layers of floating islands, which look kinda weird and flat, so I decided to write a new system for that. At the beginning everything just disappeared, but eventually I figured why and had some nice floating islands. I added back in dirt and the foliage, and now I had lovely trees inside the floating islands. Great! But luckily it was an easy fix, and here's the new world generation. Multiple layers of floating islands which I can adjust later on, and of course they still support biomes, but the only biome I've implemented so far are plains. So you have to look at those green fields for a little bit longer, sorry. Now it was time to challenge my greatest fear again. Clouds. I already have a working implementation with flat clouds in the sky, but those aren't as pretty as I would like them to be. So here we go. I recoded the remacher for clouds and ended up with this little box of clouds. I scaled it up to get a better look and feel for it, and yeah. Obviously this right now almost killed my graphics card, so I decided to remove the shadow pass of the remacher, and here's the final result. Clouds that fly through the world, when you are inside them it gets foggy and the color changes based on the daytime. I think those clouds suit the art style, so I will keep them and stop working on clouds forever. Clouds are so freaking hard. And because I was already working on a lot of shader stuff, I experimented with gold rays based on ray merging, so they don't disappear if you don't look at the sun. I don't have anything except for this because I moved on to the next thing and will probably implement them at a later stage. Okay, now let's talk about the user interface. It's time for the inventory and crafting. First off, I had to implement the little 9-patch shader. 9-patch images are basically designed to properly stretch without distorting at all. They aren't really that hard to implement but look pretty nice. I'm not sure if I should show you the process of creating all the assets of my game, but if you want me to, leave me a comment. After that I added a simple inventory with 9x4 slots and a little buggy player display. Then I added an invisible mouse slot to the inventory to be able to move the items from one slot to another. The system is basically like Minecraft. Right click a stick and you will pick up half of it. Right click an empty slot and you will put one item from your mouse slot into this slot. And then I added in item dropping. I will probably add in a system where the same items will merge into one item, but for now I'm fine with this system. Now it was time for the crafting stuff. I created some basic crafting recipes just as a test. The first one costs 1 wood and gives you 4, the second one costs 100 wood and gives you 4, and the last costs 200 wood, and because we don't have enough materials, it's grayed out. Then I added text that described the displayed user interface and more things to craft. Sticks which you can craft from wood, and plant fiber which you can craft from 10 leaves, and those leaves drop from bushes and trees. The last little thing that I added was a simple wooden axe and a tooltip menu which displays what you need to craft a specific item. The axe has no use yet, but I will add that in a later devlog as well. The last thing I worked on was the water. Because I already worked on the world generation in this devlog, I decided to add water back into the game. Obviously not like shown in the background, but in the form of rivers and waterfalls. So I generate a little noise map that creates riverbeds like in the background, and those riverbeds then get filled with water and maybe even with other liquids in the future. At first I had way too big rivers and way too many of them, so I had to cut the amount of them down to literally not flood the entire world with water. I also created a little shader which gives the edges of the water a white foam thing. I'm not sure yet if I will keep this look for the water, but that is all I've had time for the last 2 weeks. Slowly but surely the game is getting somewhere. If you have any feedback, make sure to leave it in the comment section, and I will see you guys hopefully in the next episode. Bye!